An artboard is the area in Illustrator where you can define where your artwork will actually appear, and multiple artboards were introduced in Illustrator CS4. However, Illustrator CS5 has added several enhancements that provide control and flexibility when working on your projects. You should think about multiple artboards less like multiple pages and more like multiple canvases on which to work. Illustrator doesn't have any pagination capabilities. It leaves that up to InDesign. That being said, multiple artboards can be a great tool for organizing projects and displaying several possible choices for a project. The Artboard tool is located at the bottom of the Tools panel in this location right here. And the shortcut for that tool is Shift-O on your keyboard. That will select the Artboard tool, and it will also activate the current artboard in your document. Now, with that Artboard tool selected, you can see that the outer edge of your document is darkened because the main artboard is now highlighted. You can adjust your artboard by simply dragging any of these handles and resizing your artboard accordingly. I'm just going to undo that. You can also drag any corner handle, and you can even constrain it proportionately by holding down the Shift key. I'm going to undo that as well. And you can also reposition your artboard by simply clicking on it and dragging it in your document. With the Artboard tool selected, you have a number of choices in your control panel that relate to the current artboard that's selected. You can choose a custom preset of a list of common sizes that you can use for applying them to your artboard. For instance, if I choose letter, it's going to change my artboard to a letter size artboard. I'm going to undo that. You can also change the orientation of your artboard by simply clicking on either Portrait or Landscape. I can also create a new artboard right here. I can delete it, and I can also give my artboard a name. I'm going to call this Rising Sun 1. In addition, I can turn on this option here, which will move or copy my artwork when I adjust my artboard. If I uncheck that button, it'll turn that option off, and now when I move the artboard, the artwork stays where it was. Command-Z or Control-Z to undo. I'll turn that option back on. I also have some options for additional information to show. If I click on the arrow, I can show the center mark, I can show crosshairs, and I can show video safe areas. I'm going to set this back to show center mark. I can also determine the reference point that the artwork is referenced over here in my X and Y coordinates. So if I click on the upper left corner of that reference point, you can see that the X coordinate is now 0 and the Y is now 11.26. Your properties may be slightly different depending on the movements you might have made. I'll set this back to the center, and if you want, you can customize the size of your document by adjusting it right here. Let's go ahead and change our width to 600 points and the height to 400. You can see that because my reference point was set to the dead center, that the transformation occurred based on that reference point. If you want to keep the width and height proportionate, you can click this button to turn on the link to keep these values proportionate with one another. I skipped over this icon because this will show us our artboard options, which can be accessed a number of different places inside of Illustrator CS5. If I click this button, you'll notice that my Artboard Options dialog box appears. It shows me the name that I entered in the previous step, as well as any preset that's applied, and the width and height, same information that we see up here in the control panel. This global area down here determines whether the area outside of my artboard fades when I activate the Artboard tool. I'll keep that on for now. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And the other thing that I can do when working with multiple artboards is I can duplicate existing artboards, or I can create new artboards from scratch. I'm going to zoom out by pressing Command- on my keyboard on Mac, or Control- on your keyboard in Windows to zoom out of this document. I'm just going to position my artboard to the left side of my screen by holding down the space bar on my keyboard to activate the hand tool. To easily duplicate an artboard, you can make sure that your Artboard tool is selected, and I can hold down the Option key on Mac or the Alt key on Windows to make a copy, and if I want to constrain the movement, I can also add the Shift key. So if I click and drag, I can duplicate this artboard, And the artwork is also duplicated as well, and the reason for that is because this button is turned on. If I undo this and I uncheck this button, when I make that copy, it's only going to duplicate the artboard. So I'll undo that, turn this option back on, and go ahead and duplicate this artboard. You can see that the name is now changed to Rising Sun 1 Copy. I'm going to change that to Rising Sun 2. Now I can also create new blank artboards if I want to. If I click the New Artboard button up here in the control panel, it will display the new artboard next to my cursor, allowing me to position it where I'd like. When I click, it'll create a brand new artboard. Let's go ahead and rename that one to Rising Sun 3. Press Enter to confirm that. Now I'm going to go ahead and select my selection tool to get out of the artwork mode, and I'm actually going to select the logo on the first artboard, and I'm going to copy it by pressing Command-C on Mac or Control-C on Windows. And then I'm going to marquee across both these logos, and I'm going to delete them. Because the other thing that's very nice in Illustrator CS5 is that I can go to the Edit menu and I can choose Paste on All Artboards. What this does is it very quickly and easily positions that logo on every artboard in my document. This is a huge time saver when you want to provide multiple iterations of a logo or a project to a client or to a supervisor. I'm going to move my document over a little bit, and one thing you want to pay attention to is that when you click on an artboard, you have to pay attention, but it activates the artboard and displays the artboard that's currently selected. And this is how you target one artboard versus the other. Now if we go to the View menu and we choose Rulers, Show Rulers, you can see that the X and Y coordinate of an Illustrator document is in the upper left-hand corner. But you can see right now that the rulers that are being displayed are referencing the active artboard. If I click on this artboard, you can see that the rulers update, and now the 00 coordinate is on this selected artboard. The reason for that is that if I go to the View menu under Rulers, you can see that right now Artboard Rulers is enabled. If I choose Change to Global Rulers, what you'll see is that the ruler extends all the way across all of the artboards and doesn't really change based on the artboard that's selected. I think that it's a really useful tool to be able to see the 00 coordinates and the coordinates of the selected object based on the active artboard. So I'm going to go to the View menu under Rulers and make sure that Change to Artboard Rulers is selected. Another new addition in Illustrator CS5 is the Artboards panel. If I click on the Artboards panel, you can see that all of the existing artboards that I have in my document are displayed in that panel. And if I double click on the name of each artboard, it'll simply take me to the appropriate artboard. If I click on the icon for the artboard, it's going to display that artboard's options. I'll go ahead and click Cancel. I can also come down here to the bottom and I can click the New Artboard button to add an artboard in my document. I'm going to go ahead and add 2 artboards. I'm going to rename the first one by clicking on the artboard icon to the right of the artboard. I'm going to call this one Letterhead. And then I'll click on the icon next to the artboard on Artboard 5 and call this one Envelope. I'd like to change the size of the letterhead artboard, so if I click on the artboard icon and I uncheck Constrain Proportions, in the width field I'm going to type 8.5 space IN, and then in the height field I'm going to type 11 IN. Illustrator has like a built-in calculator so that I can enter it in whatever unit of measurement I want to, and it'll automatically apply it accordingly. I'm going to click OK. And now I'm going to grab my Artboard tool and I'm just going to reposition this so that the top of the artboard is lining up with the rest of them. Now I'm just going to move over to the next artboard. I'm going to click on it and we'll change the size of this artboard as well. I'm going to come up here and change my width to 9.5 inches and the height to 4.125 inches. Once again, we'll have to readjust this so that it gives me enough room to work. And that looks pretty good. I'm going to press Escape on my keyboard to exit the Artboard mode. And once again, I'd like to have the logo on these artboards because I want to show what it'll look like on the letterhead. So I'm just going to select the artwork on the Rising Sun 3 artboard, and while holding down the Option or Alt key on my keyboard, I'm going to copy it over to this artboard. I'm going to scale this logo down by selecting my Scale tool, and I'm going to double-click on that Scale tool and make sure that the Scale Strokes and Effects are active. Click OK, and then I'm just going to click and drag while holding down my Shift key to scale it down to about the size that I want. Switch to my Selection tool and just reposition it on my letterhead. That might be a little bit small, so let's scale that up a little. That looks pretty good. Now, I'm simply going to make a copy of this artwork on my next artboard. Here again, this one might be a little large, so I'll scale it down a bit. And now if I zoom out by pressing Command- on Mac or Control- on Windows, we can see that I have multiple iterations of this logo and then how the logo is going to appear on my envelope. Another advantage of this Artboards panel is that if I click on the panel menu, I can create new artboards from here, duplicate them, delete them, and I can even delete any empty artboards that I might have. But another nice feature is the fact that I can rearrange the artboards right from this panel menu. And you can see that I can organize my artboards by row, by column, and I can arrange them by row and by column. I'm going to choose Grid by Row, set the number of columns to 1, and I'm going to make sure my spacing is set to 1 inch as well. Also, you want to make sure that Move Artwork with Artboard is selected. That way you don't have artwork extraneously spaced on your document. When I click OK, now you can see that they're organized by column. I'm going to zoom in on this first artboard because one of the things that I'm trying to do is show multiple iterations of this logo. So if I move my document up to the second logo, what I can do is click the Recolor Artwork button in the control panel and choose a color group that I'd like to apply. So I'm going to choose this color group right here, and we can see how it's automatically recoloring my artwork to create a different iteration of this logo. I'll go ahead and click OK, go to the third option, recolor the artwork, and maybe show yet one more iteration of that logo. I'm going to press Command-0 on my keyboard. I'm going to go to my Artboards panel and I'm going to double click on the Rising Sun 1 logo to make it active. And as you can see, it's very easy for me to create multiple artboards, arrange them, and create multiple versions of this logo. One added benefit of multiple artboards is my ability to go to the File menu and choose Save As. When I choose PDF from the file format, one of the things that's really useful is the ability for me to choose a range of artboards that I'd like to show. So once again, if I'm showing this document to a client, they may or may not have Illustrator to open this document. However, I could specify a range to save in my PDF so that they're only seeing the artboards that I want them to see. This is a very useful tool. I'm going to go ahead and click Cancel. And so as you've seen in this video, artboards are a very powerful tool in Illustrator CS5. Being able to display multiple iterations of your work quickly can allow you to focus on your creativity and convey those creative thoughts to your clients.